gonna be a different year. This is not the place for fear. I've got a job to do.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Today is Friday, March 12th. And as you can see by the board behind me, today we are going to be writing about Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Chapter 4. Let's zoom in to make things a little bit easier for everyone to see. You guys can see there on the board, the do now asks you to make sure that you guys first write tonight's homework down in your agenda. And you can see that I've labeled this now really homework and classwork because we've been doing so much of this work together that I think it's only appropriate that we call it homework and classwork. Because today in class, if you guys follow along in this video, we will be going over the Chapter 4 quiz. I will be reading through those questions, setting up those answers with you, and then simply leaving you to answer them. We will also be working in groups in school, and if you're in the live stream class, you'll be able to work with the other virtual students to write a summary of Chapter 4, and then you guys need to make sure that you upload a picture of that because that'll go in as page 50 into your ELA notebook. I have changed the table of contents. I am only going to be putting up the Unit 3 title pages. Anything earlier than the beginning of Unit 3, I'm not going to go back. I'm not checking. We don't need it right now. So right now, we just want to focus on Unit 3. You can see here today, we are going to be adding page 50, our Chapter 4 summary. So let's jump in right away. First thing that we need to do today is we need to do the quiz. This is the fourth time that we've done this, so the directions, they don't change. I'll quickly review them with you here, and then we'll jump over to the quiz. The directions tell you to read each question and answer in complete sentences. There are many people that I believe are not watching the videos. They're also not joining the live streams. If you know these folks, make sure you tell them they need to be joining the live streams. They need to be watching the video lessons because they're missing out on this big key direction, which is that we are answering in complete sentences. I've seen a lot of quizzes in the first couple of chapters where students are answering in short fragments, short one-word answers, okay, instead of developing a fully written, complete sentence with words from the question. They are simply leaving little fragments, and so they're not getting any credit. At most, on a 3-point question, they might be getting 1 point. On a 2-point question, they might be getting no points for these short answers. You need to answer in complete written responses. And that, of course, includes those proper nouns. So we use characters' names. It includes words from the question. That's how we know what we're talking about. We're going to take words and right out of the question, and we're going to use them in our answer. If you don't answer in a complete sentence, you're not going to be able to earn full credit. It's that plain and simple. 6th grade standards require you guys to write in fully developed complete sentences, and that's the expectation for all of your quizzes. Okay, and for the reason, that's why we've been taking our time through these first few quizzes, and that's why within the first 2, I really started just giving you guys the answers, modeling for you how we write these answers. There's 18 chapters. So, yes, for the first 2, 3, or 4 chapters, you know, it's going to seem like I'm giving you these answers, but I'm showing you really how to answer them, how to think about a question, how to read a question, how to break it down and make sure that you're answering all the parts, and how to really fully develop your answers. Okay, so later on, there's no excuses for why, when we get to these later chapters, you guys are not writing in complete sentences because you've had several chapters where the teachers are modeling for you exactly what you need to do. And this, of course, is not the first time you've gotten this. You guys are 6th graders. So this is stuff that you begin learning in 2nd grade and 3rd grade and 4th grade and 5th grade about your sentence structure and how we write sentences and how we read questions and how we answer questions in complete sentences. So my expectations are high for you guys. You're about to be middle schoolers, and you cannot go to middle school not being able to write sentences correctly. Okay, so this quiz is on Google Classroom. We will hop over to Google Classroom. 2 things that you're going to need to make sure that you have on you for the quiz always. You need your notes. Okay, this is a quiz on Chapter 4. You need to have your notes out. The other thing that you need to have is your book. You're not guessing at these answers. You have answers in your notes, and then you have answers in this book. You're allowed to use both of them, so there's no reason why you should have to guess at any answers. Okay, I have those materials. Now I'm going to go ahead, jump over to our Google Classroom. I'm going to go to the Classworks tab. I will scroll down under the Unit 3 assignments, and I will find the Chapter 4 quiz. Okay, it's right here at Flourish and Blots. I will open up that assignment, and once again, here the directions are. These directions are exactly the same as they were on the blog, so I don't need to repeat them to you guys. We are answering these questions in complete sentences. So I will open the quiz here. I apologize for any glare that there is on the TV, but if I blow it up really big, you can usually see it. Okay, write your name. Once again, 4 chapters in a row. I've been telling you guys you have to write your name. Full first and last name with capital letters on each. So my name would appear like this. I cannot tell you how irritating it is when I see students handing in their work and they do this with their name. They lowercase, okay? Lowercase r, lowercase t, whatever your name is, putting lowercase letters on your name. All proper nouns. A name is a proper noun. They need capital letters. And again, the other thing that I see is this. People just putting their first name. It's unacceptable. Okay? We put our first and last name and we capitalize both of them. Moving right along into the quiz now. So you guys know the first thing you need to do is read the question and make sense of the question. So here's the question, number 1. What was the most unusual thing to Harry about staying at the Weasleys? Explain using evidence from the text. So, first, okay, we have to understand what the question is asking. The question is basically saying that their being at the Weasleys was very unusual to Harry. So we are trying to figure out, according to Harry, what is the most unusual thing to him about staying with the Weasleys. Now, first place that I'm going to go, if I don't know the answer, is I'm going to go into my notes. That will be the first place I go to look for my answer. Okay? And as I look through here, okay, Harry and Ron, Harry stays at Ron's house and everyone loves him. Harry and Ron get their Hogwarts letters. They plan to meet up with Hermione on Diagon Alley. What I'm doing is I'm going through my notes and I'm seeing if anything I put in my notes would help me understand and answer this question. And right away, I think maybe this first thing right here about everybody loves him. Okay, that certainly would be unusual for Harry. But I'm not just going to grab that and write it down in my answer. I'm going to go into my my actual book, okay, and I'm going to look for the answers. And I have it actually right here on the first page. I'm on page 52. And on page 52, the first paragraph of this chapter says, what Harry found most unusual about life at Ron's, however, wasn't the talking mirror or the clanking ghoul. It was the fact that everybody there seemed to like him. Okay, word for word, right out of the book on page 52. Everybody likes Harry, and this is unusual because at the Dursleys, everybody hates Harry. So now to answer my question, what was the most unusual thing to Harry about staying at the Weasleys? Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start my answer. And we're going to take words right out of the question. And they're asking, what was, okay, so we're looking for a what? The most unusual thing to Harry about staying at the Weasleys. And these are the words that we're going to take from the question. So I'm going to begin. The most unusual thing to, and guys, you have to capitalize Harry's name. So many people are still not capitalizing his name. Take a look. I start with a capital T on the word the. There is one space between each word. The most unusual thing to Harry about staying at the Weasleys is ... Now, I'm not going to finish this answer for you guys. This is where I'm going to start leaving it up to you to word your answer the way that you want to word it. However, we did just find that answer on page 52. The most unusual thing about life at Ron's is the way that everybody there seemed to like him. Okay, now it does say explain using evidence from the text. So after this sentence ends, all right, I might say something like, in the story, and then I would bring in my quote, my exact quote. In the story, or better yet, the story states that, and here's where I can bring in my evidence. The story states that it was the fact that everybody there seemed to like him. And again, I could continue, and Mrs. Weasley fussed over the state of his socks. There's lots of details in here which show that everybody loves him. She tried to force him to eat 4th helpings at every meal. Mr. Weasley liked Harry to sit next to him at the dinner table. This is the evidence that I could bring in. Okay, so that's where I could say the story states, or I could say, in the story, Mrs. Weasley, and I could talk about what she does. She's always feeding him 4th helpings. Mr. Weasley is always wanting to sit next to him and talk to him about muggles. All right. We could talk about Ginny and how Ginny gets embarrassed around him all the time because she likes him so much. All right. So here we go. You guys now would have to come and finish up your answer. So if you want to pause me, you can pause me now. You guys can finish your answer for number 1 before you continue. Okay. But we went ahead and we read it. We understand what is being asked of us, and we started our answer using words from the question so that it's fully developed. And then we also talked about the second sentence where we can bring in evidence about how these characters are treating Harry. Okay, now that we've answered question 1, before you go on to question 2, you're always going to want to make sure that you reread your answers, proofread them. You're going to catch a lot of clumsy errors if you have spelling errors, or you left a word out, or if you forgot a period. This is where you'll catch those kinds of errors before you go on. Okay, question 2. First thing that we need to do is we need to read it and understand the question. The question says, where did Harry end up when using Floo powder? Who and what did he see? Now, the first thing I notice is that this is not just asking us one question. Okay, there are several in here. The first question is, where did Harry end up when using Floo powder? So we're looking for a location. Where is a location? We're looking for a place. So that's one thing we need to answer. The second thing we need to answer is, who did he see? Who did he see? That's the second part. And the third is a what, because it says who and what did he see? This is going to be a longer answer. This is not just going to be a 1-sentence answer. It's going to be 2 or 3 sentences. So we ask now, how do we begin? All right, so I'm not just going to say Harry ends up. Okay, a lot of you might start like this. Harry ends up in Borgin and Burke's. And again, where did I get that information from? I take it right out of my notes. All right, he came out at the wrong fireplace, and here I have talking about where he sees, and the name of the place is in my notes. So I know that he came out, and Harry ends up in Borgin and Burke's. Now, what is this? It's a dark arts magic shop, or it's a shop for dark arts magic. Okay, so Harry ends up in a shop for the dark arts by the name of, and we could go like that, but you're still missing something. All right, you would think Harry ends up in a shop for the dark arts by the name of Borgin and Burke's. It sounds pretty good, but you're still not fully developed your answer. You're missing an important part. When does this happen? When does Harry end up in this shop for dark arts? He ends up there when he's using his Floo powder. So, for the first time. So, I could include that in the beginning, when Harry uses flu powder, he ends up in a shop for the dark arts. Or I could end it up with it at the end. Harry ends up in a shop for the dark arts by the name of Borgin and Burke's when he uses flu powder. I could do it either way. I'm going to put it in the beginning, though, because this is where we're really taking those words out of the question and we're starting with those words. So I would say, when Harry uses flu powder is a proper noun. It's the proper name of this substance that they use to travel. Harry uses flu powder. He ends up in a shop for the dark arts by the name of Borgin and Burke's. Again, you could say, when Harry uses flu powder, he ends up in Borgin and Burke's, comma, a shop for the dark arts. Okay? As long as you're using your proper rules of writing, there are several ways that you guys could say this. So now the second part asks, who does Harry see and what does he see? Who and what does he see? So I could end my sentence right there. And now how am I going to start my second sentence? What and who does Harry see? Harry. This is again where I'm going to come in when I'm using a proper noun. Harry sees blank. Okay, you guys are going to fill in the blank with the who. I'm not going to give you that answer right now. It should be in your notes. It's in the text. Harry sees, and you're going to fill this in with whoever he sees. Harry sees. And then what? What does he see them doing? Harry sees blank. And what are they doing? They are, and again, you could fill that in. Oops, sorry, that shouldn't be a period there. We could do it that way. Harry sees blank, and they are, and then you can describe what they're doing. Okay, now again, if you're watching the video, that's plus for you. I know that he sees Draco and his father. He sees Draco Malfoy and his father. So I could say Harry sees Draco and his father, and I could go right into what they're doing. Okay, they're there and they're selling these dark arts objects. They're selling stuff from their own home. Okay, so we could say Harry sees, put in the names, and then what they're doing. They are selling items that are illegal for them to have in their homes. Okay, so make sure you're answering every part to this question. Make sure that you are going into the book to get the specific details. First place, though, that I would look would be in your notes. So I look in my notes first to see if I wrote it down. That's also going to help me if I'm looking in my notes. It's going to help me know if I have to go back into the text, where am I going to look? You know, my notes help me understand this stuff is happening in the beginning of the chapter, this stuff is happening in the middle, and then this stuff primarily is happening in the end. And so this provides me with a lot of reference to the questions and to the details I'm looking for. If I'm looking for something that happened in that shop, I can look in my notes here, and I can see right here where Harry has to travel by flu powder, but he fell out at the wrong fireplace. Harry spies on Draco and his father. So again, here I know if I have to go back into the book, I'm looking pretty much near the beginning, maybe into the middle a little bit. I'm definitely not going to be trying to jump in and look at the end of the chapter. So your notes are helpful when you have to go back into your book to find these answers. All right, once again, I will leave you to answer question 2 on your own since I've guided you through how to set up your answer. Let's go on to question number 3. Why was Harry embarrassed at Gringotts? All right, first thing you need to remember is that Gringotts is the name of the bank. It's the wizard bank that they go to on Diagon Alley. Now, this question is just as challenging as the one before, all right? But this one only has one part. But it has a very challenging part. It says, why was Harry embarrassed at Gringotts? And I know that nowhere in the text does it come out and say that Harry is embarrassed at Gringotts. It doesn't come out and say that. So first place I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my notes to see about where this answer is. Do I have it anywhere in my notes? I do have event 8 that Harry and the Weasleys go to Gringotts Bank. All right, there it is here at event 8, right before Harry shops with Hermione and Ron, and right after Harry tells Ron and Hermione about seeing Malfoy and his father. So to make sure I know the answer, I am going to go back into the book. Okay, I'm going to open up to chapter 4. Right there. All right, and then I'm going to go into the book and I'm going to look for my answer. Okay, and again, I know that Harry, ultimately, we know a lot about the Weasleys and how poor they are, and we know that Harry himself has a lot of money, and Harry is really kind of embarrassed the fact that he has money and the Weasleys don't. Okay, so I will let you guys word your answer. I will let you find the details in the text, but how do we set up our answer? We begin by taking words right out of the question. Okay, and don't do this. Harry was embarrassed because. Couple things here about this is I've left this part of the question out. Harry was embarrassed at Gringotts. This is what we mean by fully developing your answers. If I just say Harry was embarrassed because he has a lot of wizard money and the Weasleys are very poor, that's a complete sentence, but it's not fully developed. A fully developed sentence is going to include this words right here, at Gringotts. Where was Harry embarrassed? He was embarrassed at Gringotts. Also notice I'm not starting with the word he. Okay? He is a pronoun. Okay? The word Harry is a proper noun. When you're done reading your answer, when you're done writing your answer, you should no longer, again, need the question to make sense of your sentence. If I just say he was embarrassed at Gringotts because he has a lot of money and the Weasleys do not, the only way I know who he is by reading the question. So instead of using he, we always use the character's name. Harry was embarrassed, and I'm going to be as specific and detailed as I can, at Gringotts because. Okay, and then you guys can word your answer your own way. I would talk about something to do with the fact that Harry has money and the Weasleys don't. I would also make sure you end with a period. Many people overlook that when they're writing their sentences. Make sure you end them with a period. Okay, let's go on and let's talk about number 4. Number 4 simply says, describe Gilderoy Lockhart. In this chapter, we meet Gilderoy Lockhart, and so it just says, describe Gilderoy Lockhart. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look in my notes. Did I write anything down about Gilderoy Lockhart? All right. Lockhart makes Harry take a picture of him for the newspaper. Lockhart announces he's going to be teaching Defense Against the Dark Arts. Lockhart thinks that the fight will be good for publicity. So I've actually got a couple things in there about Lockhart. Now, I don't know if my notes help me fully explain or describe Lockhart, so I'm definitely going to be going back into my book, and I'm going to be looking for details. Now, here's the good thing, again, about my notes. My notes, notice the stuff about Lockhart, it's all at the end of the chapter. I'm not going to waste my time looking through the beginning and the middle of the chapter. I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to kind of start at the back of the chapter, towards the end, when I know that Lockhart is in the chapter, because he's only there at the bookstore. So I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to look for some specific details pertaining to Gilderoy Lockhart to describe him. For you guys, I'm just simply going to talk to you guys about how to set this up. What would you do to start this answer? Based off of the question, all we can do is Gilderoy Lockhart is. All right, and then you would just use to describe him. Gilderoy Lockhart is, we could talk about how he's going to be the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. He's the author of all of these books. A deeper reading would start talking about his arrogance and his ego and how much he loves himself and how famous he thinks himself is. Or, sorry, that was bad grammar right there. How famous he thinks he is. How all of the witches really seem to kind of love him and like Gilderoy. Okay, so you guys could use any of the details from the text that you think are the most important. All right, but by saying things like he's going to be the teacher at Hogwarts for the Defense Against the Dark Arts, things like he's the author of these books, those are very literal. Okay. When we say describe Gilderoy Lockhart, we really want you to try to go deeper and start describing his character, his personality. So think about what he says, what he does, what he thinks, what choices he makes. Because he brings Harry right up in the bookstore, takes a picture, and he says, "Together, you and I are worth the front page." So he clearly has a very high thoughts of himself. He's got a very high opinion of himself. So he kind of, to use a phrase, he thinks he's all that and a bag of chips. All right. So you really want to try to make some inferences here. And again, this is where you read what the character is doing, thinking, and saying. And then you say, well, he's really nice, or he's really mean, or he's a jerk, or he's arrogant, or he's selfish, or he's dumb, or he's smart, or he's kind. All right? This is the kinds of stuff that you guys are going to be putting in your answer. Now, even though the question doesn't say, explain using evidence from the text, I'm actually going to be adding that to the quiz right now because it needs to be added. All right? So right here, I'll add it afterwards. But you guys are going to make sure that you use evidence from the text to support your thinking. Question number 5 says, share your thoughts about the fight at the end of the chapter. What do you think Mr. Weasley should have done about Mr. Malfoy? All right. So again, this is a level 2 question. It is worth 2 points. And it's not so important what you answer, but it's how you answer and how well you guys show us. Now, again, this is 4 chapters in, how well you guys are writing. Okay, so it says share your thoughts about the fight at the end of the chapter. Okay, when it asks for your thoughts, you might simply begin with, I think. I've asked for your thoughts, so begin with the words, I think. Okay, or you could begin with, in my opinion. That, again, is sharing your own thoughts. All right, so I'll start off with, in my opinion. Now, again, I might still use the words I think, okay, but in my opinion, again, what are my thoughts about the fight? In my opinion, Mr. Weasley should not have started the fight with Mr. Malfoy. It is a bad idea to ever get into a fight because people can get hurt. It also sets a bad example for his children. I could go on and on and on and on again and on. All right, but this question, it has 2 parts. It says, what do you think Mr. Weasley should have done about Mr. Malfoy? Now, I've only answered the first part so far. I haven't answered the second part. So you need to make sure that when you have questions like this, you're answering both parts. This question is worth 2 points, so each part will be worth a point. Okay, so first I share my thoughts. In my opinion, Mr. Weasley should not have started the fight with Mr. Malfoy. It is a bad idea to ever get into a fight because people can get hurt. It also sets a bad example for his children. It took me 3 sentences. So what do you think Mr. Weasley should have done about Mr. Malfoy? We have to think, how are we going to answer this? Again, it's asking for, again, your opinion. And a lot of kids might answer like this. I think Mr. Weasley should have done about, actually they'll do it like this. What I think Mr. Weasley should have done about Mr. Malfoy is, and then they'll finish their answer that way. And while that kind of works, it's really poor grammar, it's poor sentence structure. Instead of saying, what I think Mr. Weasley should have done about Mr. Malfoy, you just get rid of the what at the beginning and just say, I think Mr. Weasley should have, we could say, ignored Mr. Malfoy. We could say Mr. Weasley should have walked away from Mr. Malfoy. There's a lot of things that we could say. I think that Mr. Weasley should have punched him in the nose. I think Mr. Weasley should have cast a spell on him. Any number of answers could be correct here. Because remember, this is all about your opinion. So as long as you're expressing your opinion, you're writing it as a full sentence, with proper capitals and punctuation, there's no way that I can say that your opinion is wrong, all right, because it's your opinion. Also, with this first part, same thing. I could say, in my opinion, Mr. Weasley should have knocked out Mr. Malfoy. Mr. Malfoy was insulting him and calling him names in front of his children. He was being a real bully, and he deserved to get hit. Again, I gotta go back in here, fix a couple of my spelling errors. Okay, you can see here, this opinion is very different than the first opinion I shared. All right, so it's not so much it's about your opinion. It's just about that you express your opinion and you can back it up like I just did here. Once again, making sure that your sentences are beginning with a capital, they're ending with periods, your proper nouns have capitals on them, and that you are fully developing these answers, ladies and gentlemen. That's really what we are looking for you to do here in the 3rd and 4th quarter of 6th grade. We need to learn how to write fully developed sentences. Okay, so I've shared with you even more today than I had planned on sharing with you regarding these questions. So you guys know that you need to make sure that before you submit, you should always go back, reread everything that you wrote. I like to reread it before I even move on to the next question. Make sure that every answer is the way that you want it to sound, and before you guys hit that submit button. Once you do, we're then ready to write our summaries. I'm going to go ahead and add that to my question right here. I'm going to edit it. Use evidence from the text to support your answer. And then same down here. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So now that we are done with the quiz, we come back here to the blog, and this is where we have our next activity, the 45 or 60-second summary challenge. Now, for you folks at home that are watching these videos, I've already gone through kind of what this 60-second summary challenge is, and the only way that you can participate in that is by joining the live stream. That way you guys can be writing with a group of your peers. But let me remind you about what this is. So in this challenge, you work with members of your house to discuss the events of the chapter and write your summary. If you do not have enough people to make up a full group, your teacher might combine 2 houses for this activity. You have 15 minutes to write. Now, if you're doing this at home, you guys can take more than 15 minutes. That's fine. But in school, we're going to do it in 15 minutes. Your summaries can be exactly the same as the people in your group, or you can write your own in your own words. Each house will then choose a representative to read their summary out loud. The readers have 60 seconds to read their summary out loud. The teachers will act as impartial judges, and they award points for the best summaries. Your summary will be written right on the next page in your notes. Okay, so here's a big reminder for you guys. Remember, we have a spiral-bound notebook like this. Okay, our notes go on the left. That's what it says right there. Notes go on the left. Summaries go on the right, so that when I go to write my summary, I'm sitting there and I have my notes right in front of me as I'm going to write the summary. I can see my notes as I'm writing that summary. That's how we want it to be. We don't want you to have to be flipping back and forth as you try to write your summaries. So your summaries, you guys know by now, they need to include these 3 parts. The main idea, think the mood, think big idea of the chapter. Okay, for example, in this chapter, the boys and girls, Harry and his friends, they go shopping at Diagon Alley. That's the big thing that happens. Okay, they go get ready for school by shopping on Diagon Alley. That could be a way that you start your summary with the main idea. I'll show you what I did with mine. Next, you need the most important details from the chapter. Your summaries should not be more than a page long. Mine are between about a half to 3/4 of a page. Occasionally, I'll get a longer chapter, like near the climax, and it will be a longer summary, but you don't want to retell. If you're trying to put in all the details, that's not summarizing, that's retelling. And I don't want you to retell. We summarize. So we have to figure out what's just the most important details. And then the last thing is a reflection. And that's, again, it's not your thoughts about whether or not you liked the chapter or if it was good. All right? Your reflection is your thoughts on the events of the chapter. So think about what happened in this chapter. Harry got lost. He saw his arch enemy Draco Malfoy trying to sell some dark arts objects. They went shopping for school. Harry had his picture taken. He's going to be in the newspaper. He met his dark arts teacher. He traveled by Floo powder. There are all these things that he did. You can pick almost any one of them, but you want to try to pick the more important events and then share your thoughts about the stuff that happened. And again, as you're working, the teachers, they come around and they provide support. This is why you guys should be online, because when you're writing and you're virtual, I can be there and I can support you if you guys have questions. I'm walking around the room and I'm checking in with my students that are in person, and then I'm also checking in with the virtual students as they're working together with the other virtual students, and you're helping each other, which is how you get better with any skill, whether it be sports like baseball, football, whether it be art, okay, or dance. Does not matter what you're doing. You get better by practicing, and the most effective practice is often with other people who are either more skilled than you, sometimes even less skilled. It doesn't matter, but you're all working together and everybody's skills are improving. Okay? These are things that you guys can think about. These are questions that teachers ask as you guys are working on your summaries. Things like, what does your summary need to start with? You guys should make sure you automatically know that main idea. Have you written your main idea? Make sure you stop. Do I have my main idea? Okay? What did you write down for your main idea? What details are you going to include? Think about that. Why are those details important? Have you used any transitional words to connect your thoughts and sentences? And are there any places where you should be using transitional words and phrases? Okay, what are your thoughts on the events of the chapter? Basically, as you start thinking about what are your thoughts of some of these things that happened. Do you think it would be fun to travel by Floo powder? What do you think Harry should have done in the moment where they got into a big fight at the end? Do you think it was smart for Mr. Weasley to get into a fight? Okay, just start thinking about, hey, if I was there and I was seeing all these things happen, what would my thoughts have been? How do these events show that Harry is a literary hero? This is something that you could go back into, and in these chapters we really see that Harry, as far as the hero's journey goes, this is an example of Harry entering this unknown world, going from the Muggle world into the Wizarding world. Okay, and also checking on your capitals, your periods, your grammar, and your sentence structure. Okay, you will be expected to follow the rules of writing, and here are just some things that I pointed out to make sure that you guys are all doing. Indenting the first sentence. We know that in a paragraph, you always indent the first sentence. All other lines are lined up right along the margin on the left. Okay, and to show you in my summary what I mean by that, you can see here in my summary, let me blow this up. You'll see my first line right here, it is indented. It does not start next to the line. I indent it. It's about 2 fingers in, okay, an indent. And then all of my other lines are right along the left-hand edge. Okay? Words go on the line. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot emphasize this enough, but you guys need to be writing on the lines. You guys are 6th graders. You'll see all of my words fit on the lines. They need to go in the lines. And speaking of the margins, you'll also notice that the right-hand side, it also has a margin. It's very hard to see. It's a thin pink line. All right? But the basic rule is you can start a word. Let me see, like a word like Lockhart. This word started in front of the margin and it ended outside the margin. If you can start a word before you hit the margin, that's fine. But I'm not going to start new words out here in the margin. You should have a margin on the right, and you should have a margin on the left on either side of your writing. You need to make sure that you're putting spaces between your words. One space between each word, one space after your periods. Okay, you guys need to use proper capitalization and punctuation. We have to be ending our sentences with periods. You need to take the time to stop. And remember, we end with a period. You also need to make sure that you're starting with a capital, which also would be putting capitals on your characters' names and any other proper nouns. Spelling matters, guys. These ones are practice, these first chapters. But as I've mentioned, and I'll mention it here again, you will be handing in 3 of these for quiz grades, and spelling is going to matter. You should not be spelling words from the book incorrectly, especially characters' names. All right? I don't care that Hermione's name is a unique name. It's in the book. You spell it correctly. Okay? Dursleys should be spelled correctly. The Weasleys, Draco, any of these words, they should be spelled correctly. They're in your book. They're in your notes. You need to spell them correctly. There's no excuse. Okay? And then neatness. Neatness matters. Okay? It really does. I need to, one, be able to see a clear picture, but also I should be able to see neat writing. Okay? If I can't read your writing, I find it really hard to give you full credit for that classwork. Because one, you're either writing it so quick that really it shows a lack of effort. Or it's just so messy that I don't understand how you guys could even yourselves go back and get anything out of it. All right, because it just looks so messy. It's really hard and challenging to read. Take the time to write slowly and write neatly. It will get easier, I promise you. If you continue, though, to just write fast and write messy, you will write fast and messy your whole life, and it won't ever get easier. The only way that it gets easier is by you guys slowing down, taking your time, and doing it the right way. And eventually, you will get faster. But you'll get faster, and you'll still be able to do it neatly. Okay, so people that are in school, you guys know that you earn house points for this for the best summaries. As we get further into the unit, point values will go up. And the last thing before you guys write your summaries is how are you being evaluated. These summaries that you're regularly handing in are being written in your notebook as practice, and they're handed in. They count as classwork grades. 3 times throughout our unit, these summaries will be handed in digitally. So next chapter, chapter 5, it will be handed in digitally and graded as a quiz grade in Google Classroom. So your summaries for chapters 5, 10, and 15 will be handed in, and they will be graded as quiz grades. All right? So now let's turn over here to the Ladybug, and I want to briefly share with you my summary, because we are still near the beginning of the book, and I want to make sure that you guys are feeling very confident about how to write your summaries by the end. All right, on this page, you guys know that we need several things. The first is our title. You should title this Chapter 4 Summary. We have to have the page number, and we also need to have the date, which you'll notice I don't have. So I'm going to go back to my blog, and I'm going to make sure I get the date down. It's Friday, March 12th, so I'm going to add the date right now. All right, now let me briefly read you my summary, and then I will leave you to write your own. Okay, my main idea. Notice, when I write the main idea, guys, you never use the words, the main idea. All right, I'm starting by just stating the main idea. You state the main idea, but you don't need to use the words, main idea. You see, I wrote here, Harry's life takes a big turn after Ron comes and rescues him. That's it. I don't get into details. All right, this is the big idea for me. The first 3 chapters, Harry's life stinks. He actually ends chapter 3 being locked in his room, being fed through a cat flap door with bars on the window, and he is not allowed to go back to Hogwarts. He can't use magic, and so things are awful. The first 3 chapters, Harry's life stinks. And then in chapter 4, things get better. Really, 3 and 4, they get better. But it goes from having this life that is awful to completely a different setting and circumstances, and Harry's life takes a big turn for the better. So that's how I started it. Now I'm going to get into my details. I'm going to explain why Harry's life is so much better now. My details say this. Harry is now spending the end of the summer with the Weasleys, who absolutely love Harry. They all travel by Floo powder to Diagon Alley to get school supplies. But Harry gets lost and he ends up spying on Draco and his father in a shop for dark arts. Now, notice, I didn't talk about them hanging out during the day and going to play and practice Quidditch. I'm focusing on just the most important details. Okay? The name of this chapter is At Flourish and Blots. So, again, I'm trying to focus on, well, what happened at Flourish and Blots? And that's what happened with Gilderoy Lockhart, the fight, Harry getting in the newspaper. So I'm moving and I'm focusing on just the most important details. Alright? At Flourish and Blots bookstore, Harry gets his picture taken for the newspaper with Gilderoy Lockhart. They have a run-in with Draco and his father, and Mr. Weasley and Mr. Malfoy get into a fight. Those are the details that I've chosen to use. Now, when I'm writing, I reemphasize, proper nouns need capitals, you guys need sentences that start with capitals, sentences that end with periods, proper spacing. Alright, it's going to matter. All those things we talked about earlier. The last thing that you need is a reflection. Now, I'm not going to write, I think that this chapter was really good. Alright, I want to pick something that happened in this chapter, something important, and really share my opinion about it. And this is what I wrote for mine. Alright, this is kind of like that level 2 kind of thinking. Alright, if you were Harry. And this is what I wrote. If I was Harry, I would be wondering about what it is the Malfoys are trying to sell. Okay? I'm putting myself in the main character's shoes, and I'm sharing my own opinions. If I was Harry, I would be wondering about what's going on with the Malfoys. What are they trying to sell? What are they trying to hide? Alright? So now that I've shared my example with you guys need to take the time, make sure that you set your notebook page up at the top, write your own summary. When you're done with your summary, make sure that you go over to the classwork tab on Google Classroom, and you will find this right here, Chapter 4 Summary, and you'll see NB stands for Notebook, so Notebook page 50, you will click here, and you will go ahead and you will add, upload your picture here. Okay, make sure you guys are taking good pictures so that I can see them, make sure that you guys are writing neatly. Alright, so that's all I have for you guys today. Now, next week, we're actually only going to be doing one chapter because Monday we have a staff day, so we're not going to try to do a new chapter on Monday and Tuesday. We're going to be actually taking a break from reading on Tuesday, and we're going to have some fun with these things called Frere vocabulary models. And so we're going to be doing a little bit of work with vocabulary, and then we'll read Chapter 5 on Thursday and Friday next week. So I look forward to seeing you guys then. In the meantime, you guys have a great one. Stay safe. Bye-bye.